Now this part right here is the big canyon that goes down. I was gonna leave this open so she could climb out, but I don't want her struggling with getting out. Now this is gonna be a two-piece, so this piece we're maneuvering in there so that it has stability. Now it's going to be so we can put a plant right here, and we still have drainage. So and the idea is we're trying to blend this to look as natural as possible. Now when you're spray foaming, don't go buck wild, because this puts out a lot of foam at once, especially when you're doing detail work like this. Just slowly open the canister and you'll be just fine. So that's in place there, and now while that's still wet, we're actually going to put this one into place. This will be something for her to grip onto. We're going to add some more foam down here. Now I am going to add some texturing inside the cork. I'm filling in the holes here, not because I don't like the way the piece of driftwood is, but because I know that this piece is already a little unsteady. And so I'm actually going to go around the back side here. Oh, if I can get the canister in place. So you saw as I lightly touched that, the whole thing moved, and we don't want there we go. So I'm going to move this piece over, I'm going to connect it there, I'm going to connect it there. I'm doing all this right now like I said, we want to make this look as natural as possible. So even though I've already painted all this over here, I'm going back over a section of it with foam so that I can blend it. So once this all cures, then what we'll do is we'll actually remove the top layer of foam, because the paint has a hard time sticking to the shiny parts of it. So if it's shiny, it's not going to stick that well. So in doing that, we'll be able to put the multiple layers of black, and then we'll texture with brown and green, and then we'll clear coat it. Alright guys, we are starting to build the landmass. So this, it goes by a couple of different names. It's actually used for lighting, which kind of cracks me up, because when you go into Menards or your big box stores, it's so funny because they're like, well, what are you using it for, the ceiling or the floor? And I'm like, neither. I'm using it for a reptile enclosure. And they're like, what? Yeah. Most of the stuff that we do in this hobby goes by different names because, you know, obviously we use it for other stuff that it's not intended for. But I call it egg crate. It's also called lighting covers. But so I measured out the landmass here, and I know it's kind of hard to see, but I put black marks, and then I'm just going to take a pair of cutters here, and it's very straightforward. This stuff is very easy to work with. They will break free, but you're just going to go through each layer and cut. And then once I'm done, so we have the factory edge over here, that's the smooth side, that's going to be toward the outside, and then the parts with all the points, that is going to be toward the wall, so that the animal doesn't get injured. You can also take sandpaper and sand it down. This is something that I've only used a couple of times for land masses, and that's because we want the water to pass through this. And so once we get this cut out, then we're going to measure again the top or the side, because we're actually going to create a lip around it. So we're going to take a piece of this and set it on the side of this, all around the edges, so that the soil stays in and it doesn't pass to the water. And then in order to protect the animal, we will I think I'm going to put some round cork or some flat cork over the edge, that way there's no sharp edges and it looks natural for them. And obviously, you know, safety is key when it comes to building custom enclosures for animals. Oh my god, it's kind of tricky because you're trying to focus on all these little dots. But I went through and I measured yesterday a wall, and as you can see, you know, and I'll show you guys in a little bit here, we will be carving out the foam that I put in yesterday. And like I always say, you know, okay, so right now we're at the junction point. So I'm going to cut right there, and then I'm actually going to turn, because now we're moving this way. But like I always tell people, you know, with these videos, you're seeing it in one go, but this build has taken me some time, and so for me it's another day, but for you it's 20 seconds. So I may make these builds look easy, but there is a lot that goes into these builds. There's a lot of planning, a lot of configuring, trying to figure out accommodations for the animal. And the mangrove, she's actually not going to be going in the enclosure right away, and that's because we want the enclosure to establish. So when we cycle aquariums, freshwater we typically wait 10 to 12, or I'm sorry, 4 to 6 weeks, and then saltwater we wait 10 to 12. So, but with a terrarium, I like to tell people 4 to 6 weeks before you put the animal in there. That way, if you have plants, the plants can run in. If you have springtails and isopods, it gives them a chance to colonize. So, but as you can see, we got this piece cut out. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to figure out how big the lip is here. So this side will be fine. We're only doing the lip on the long side here and the long side here. So I'm setting it up here. Now I'm doing 4 rows up, and I might cut this down again. I'm going to set it in there, that way I can see how tall it is, because obviously I don't want it hanging over the edge. Yeah, I think we're gonna do 4 tassels up. So then you go through, make sure to squeeze really hard, because sometimes that's why I use wire cutters. It just seems to work the best. If you use like a cutting tool, this stuff is so fragile in this state that if you use like a saw or whatever, it would just shatter. So and as you can hear it breaking with every cut that I make. And then what we'll do is we'll actually attach this to the big piece. And that's the great thing about this, is if you cut it too big, you can adjust it and trim it down. Oh, sorry, my head's hitting the microphone there. It's crazy, like, oh, here we go. So, there's our side piece. Now this side piece, since this is the sharp edge right here, we're gonna put this down on the edge, and then we'll actually use zip ties to go through and secure it. And then we're gonna wrap this whole thing with screen mesh. So I'm gonna come down here, and I actually might use one of my scrap pieces if it's big enough, and it is. So you want the same height. Actually, you know what? No, we're not going to use. There are different types of egg crate. I'm going to set this piece to the side. I just want to get a measurement. So, there are different types of egg crate, but white you can typically find in most of your stores. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to go black, which I originally thought about doing black because it blends in, black you have to special order. You can order it off Amazon, but it's a little bit more pricey. But it all depends on how you want it to look. This stuff is for, what was it? It was a 2, or what is it? I gotta look at the measurements of what this was. It's 2 foot by 4 foot. So if you need something bigger than this, then make sure to measure out your area before you order it. But this piece right here was like 16 bucks, so it wasn't terribly expensive. Make sure to vacuum or sweep up after you're done with this stuff, because you will have little shards of plastic. For us, we have the laminate flooring, and so it's really easy to sweep up. But if you have, let's see if I can set this out of the way. Yeah, I mean, you can see I've all these little pieces sitting around. But if you have carpet, I definitely recommend vacuuming, or I would just cut it in general out on somewhere where you have a hard surface. Alright guys, as you can see, we went through and we snipped off all the zip ties, so this one's in place. You can see it's kind of bowed out a little bit, and that's because this other piece is not in place. As you can see, as I was fast forwarding it, before I cut off the ends of the zip ties, I was actually pulling them to make sure that they were tight. So again, we're going to put the jagged edge down. We're going to leave the smooth side up. I'm going to see how I have this one positioned. Now what we're going to do here is we're actually going to overlap them, and we're actually going to attach them here and then all the way across the bottom again. So now you're like, well, you can't really put it on the bottom this time. You're right, I cannot. So we're going to put it on the end, and then we'll just cover it up with bark. So again, don't tighten the first one very tight, but because you are dealing with now a crooked setup, I like to put one on the top and the bottom of the corner. That way it's stable. And then I'll actually put one on the other end as well. Oops. Make sure you go through the hole. And this one we're going to push down toward the bottom. Alright guys, so next up we're putting on the screen. You can go and pick this stuff up at any of your big box stores, Menards, Home Depot, Lowe's, anything like that. This is just door screen, but this is actually pet safe door screen. I like the stuff that has the very small holes in it, but what we're going to do here, and I've already pre-cut two pieces because I don't feel the need that you need to watch me cut pieces. But so what we're going to do is line this up. Now I have it overlapped on both sides. And I'm poking holes on each side so that I can pull the grate. I use the scissors to start the holes. And what we're doing here is we're just holding this down into place. So, this is something that you don't need to do it every single one like we did around the grate. But you do want enough that's going to hold it in place. Alright guys, as you can see, we got the bottom all put on and the sides. Give you a little closer look. We zip tied several times in the middle, and then where we made the splice, we overlapped. Now, I did leave this open for a reason, but we'll get to that in a second. But you can see that I left overhang, and that's so that the substrate can't fall down in between it. So where this is going and where that bare piece is, it's very, very narrow under there. So there will be no substrate where this corner is. So it'll help with water drainage and all that. So, but yeah. So next up, now that that is preliminary done, we have to finish up all this before that piece can even go in. But you can see I talked about the shiny part of foam, and you can see it, all this shiny stuff. So we're gonna go through, we're gonna peel all this back. This one kind of went buck wild on me. But we will start painting that. And I haven't decided if I'm going to paint the columns or not. I'm trying to hide this glue. And someone recommended just putting moss on top of it, but I don't know. For me, I'll know it's there, and so I might paint to blend it to make, because these look so out of place versus the waterfall. So I might try to get in here and paint. It's going to be very difficult, but we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I might try the back columns and see how that goes. And maybe leave these ones bare, but I don't know, we'll see. Let's figure it out together. But yeah, let's get on to doing and removing the foam, and we'll get these painted. Obviously these pieces have to have the multiple layers of paint, the blacks, the browns, the greens, the grays, and then the clear coat on top of that. So. Alright guys, you can see we have the shiny spot here. I'm not going to use the tools that I used to do all the background because I don't want to make one heck of a mess, and now with the pillars in here it would just be awful. So all you're going to do, you can use your fingernail, you can use a razor blade. I am trying to conform it to the shape of the existing background already. So you can see right there, I just let it contour to the background. Really easy going. And there you go. There's one side already. I'm just removing the shiny. So I know I'm probably going to be in the way of the camera here, but it is crucial that you get all the shiny part off. I still feel like it's snowing in here because when we were grinding, all of it got jam-packed up in the top, And I even went and vacuumed up there and it's still snowing. And there we go. We contoured it to the existing background already, so it looks natural. I know this piece is a little harder to see because of this piece here, but you're doing the same concept. Biggest thing is you don't want to rip too far, because then you'll remove what's actually holding that piece in place. I want it looking rough because I want it to blend. So in the back here we have all that, and that is just a backing to this piece right here to hold it in place. So I'm not going to remove any of that back there, otherwise I would have to paint 100% of it. I might remove some of the top stuff, just something that can be seen, but other than that I'm going to leave all that stuff down lower. Alright guys, I got the first couple of coats on the black, and as you can still wet. But your first couple of coats on new foam, you want to make sure that it's really thick, because this foam just drinks the paint. So we touched up a couple of spots over here on the waterfall, and then I did go through, I didn't like the fact that, so I'm going to start texturing. I covered up all the hot glue with paint, and I'm actually going to texture it to make it look like that, because for me, yes, it would eventually get there, but doing all this work, it looked completely different. And so I want to texture it. I wanted to get it that look, that shine. Yes, it's going to suck because I'm going to have to clear coat this thing in here, and it's going to be a real pain, but yeah. So just finished letting I gotta let this dry here. I just painted it. I use some very small brushes so that I can get in around the pillars, but I'll go in next. I'll give this about an hour to dry. Don't worry, for you it's gonna be a blink of an eye, but I'll let this dry, and then I will hit, because I'm not going to do a multiple coat of black on the rocks. We're just going to go straight into some of the browns, and then we'll hit gray, and then green, and then clear coat. Up here we have one more coat of black on these, and then we'll start doing brown, and then gray, then green, then clear coat. So yeah, stick around guys, we are almost there, but not quite actually, because we still have to put in the misting system up here. We still have to put all the plants in. We have to put the landmass in, but once I'm done with this area right here with these pillars, then I'll be able to put the landmass in, and we're gonna have springtails and isopods in here, and then we're gonna put fluvial stratum as the base down here. Obviously I don't want that in there yet because I'm still spilling paint and there's dust and all that, so we'll clean up the bottom very, very well before we put any stuff in the bottom. All right guys, all the paint is done. The landmass is sitting in here. Now what we're gonna do next, so we have plastic pillars, and we have plastic egg crate. So where those pillars are, we're gonna run a bead of hot glue down to each pillar. And that way it holds the landmass in place. You're like, well, how are you shooting it through the screen? Well, just put the tip of the nose of the hot glue gun on the edge of the screen and it'll shoot right through. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do the very back one that's underneath the landmass. But we can do all the others.
Alright guys, as you can see, like I said, we got this in place, and then you can see I just went through and drilled for the misting system. We will reposition these when we get the plants and everything in there. I have one misting head over here that I can directionalize. This is a quad misting head, and then this is a dual misting head over here for the plants that are going to be right there. There's no misting system over here, and that's because we'll have an active waterfall going. So I got to go through and vacuum all this up. But yeah, guys, it's exciting. Next up, we are doing the substrate, starting to get the plants in there. We'll get the drip wall configured back there, and I'm very excited where we are right now. So since we have the misting system in, everything's vacuumed out, we're going to add in the substrate. So I'm not talking about bioactive substrate, I'm actually talking about fluval stratum. This is what's going to be on the bottom of this here. We have a couple of bags that we're going to put in. Also, since we have the pillars, we got to work that around, and so I'm actually using this is Aquavitro's soil spade. It's a really good device. It looks just like this. You have the fat end on one side and the skinny end on the other sides for getting in tight areas. So I will set that up there. Now this fluval stratum is good for minerals. It's really rich and helps with making sure that your pH stays down. We will have some aquatic plants in here, but it'll be after the tank goes through its cycle. Now, I tell you before that, you know, the mangrove she's not going in here right away, and that's because, just like aquariums, I like to let terrariums cycle. And what I mean by that is I want the plants to have a chance to get rooted in, and I want the cleanup crews to get established. So, and I can do a whole other video on that. So, and the reason why we're going with black and not white is because of this over here. That is, it's going to be very difficult to get in here and clean, and so I don't want to have like mold, or not mold, what do you call it, algae, to grow back here and then make it very difficult to get a hold of. So I know I'm in the way here.
and you will make a mess doing this. So I'm putting some back in this back corner, and then I'm going to use the spade to move it around. That's actually why I left this gap on the front, so that I could do this and drop substrate in the front up here. I knew it was going to be very difficult, and I know you're just seeing the back side of me. Let me see if I can, there we go. So all I'm doing right now, spreading out the soil. Yep, and I'm just throwing it in the back there because my arm can't reach. And then you can use your tile spade or your spade here to move the soil around. And I'll reposition because I'm starting to work over here again. I'm not doing a terribly deep substrate. If I want to add in more later, I can, but for the time being, I'm not. I am leaving it a little heavier right here, and that's because this is where the plants are going to be sitting. So yeah, there is. So tile spade, I know I use my hand a lot, but the tile spade works when you're trying to reach hard to reach places. Actually, I need to move some of it around in the corner. And once the mangrove does go in here, she's gonna move all this stuff anyway, so it's gonna be fun. So there is the bedding, or the fluval stratum. Next we are going to, now that we have that in there, we are going to start adding in the substrate, actually, for the bioactive. Alright guys, we got the tank filled up. Took 2 days because it holds about 150 gallons of water. As you can see, the drains are working really nicely. The waterfall is actually doing exactly what I wanted it to, and we're going to cover this up with moss up here so you can't see that intake. But it's falling exactly how I wanted it to. The drip wall, we are going to turn up this drip wall a little bit once I get moss on top of it, but it's working very well. We used small pieces of PVC and then drilled it so that all the moss stays saturated. You can see it's falling down through the crevices that I created. Now, with that being said, we did run into an issue. So, as you can see, I went through and foamed underneath this to stabilize. And there was a big gap over here that I wanted to fill up. This is an issue. You'll never see this, but this is an issue. The second we put water in, all the rocks started falling off the pillars. The hot glue, for whatever reason, didn't stick, and everything started crumbling. So I have mortar coming in tomorrow, which for you will be today, and we are going to see if it works. It's kind of infuriating. I had to walk away from the tank the other day because it was just, I was very angry that I put all that work into this and it just crumbled. The tank is cycling right now, but today we're going to start putting in the lava rock that I'm going to put in here as a base, and then we'll put the soil in and put the moss, and then we're going to start putting plants. Again, I was going to do this last week, but lo and behold, the camera died once again. So with that being said, guys, let's get into it.
So we got the lava rock in. This is the base layer here. And I did put some over there just for the runoff because the water is going to go over here and then back down. So I wanted to block the soil from coming out. This is the soil we're using. This is one of my bioactive bins. You can see there's isopods everywhere in here. So the more you move, the more isopods run. This is just a mixed blend. So let's get this put in there. All right, so we're not going to add in any layer, any drainage layer, or the screen. Obviously, the lava rock here is the drainage layer, but what I'm doing is I'm just taking some green as this breaks down. It'll be nutrients. Oops. It'll be nutrients for the soil. So, okay. This already has isopods in it. We'll see them climbing around, breaking down the components. And then on top of this, we're going to put moss. Isopods are going to start moving around, start cleaning. We are going to turn this up. We're doing this so there's multiple layers. Put that down here. That root stuff down there. So, what we're doing up here, I'm actually just going to pour it out and then move it up. Okay, we're adding plants. Well, we're adding soil to all the components. Alright guys, I got one of the plants in. I did a little pruning on it so that it looks better. We're definitely going to have to let it grow in a little bit, but let's get the plants up top. Sorry, I didn't realize the camera wasn't rolling, and so I'm trying to figure out what to put. Oh, I remember what's going up there. Next up is the Hoya sprinkles. I know you can't see it because I'm only one person, but I can walk you through what I'm doing. First off, I'm taking off the hanger, and then I am flipping it upside down. Wow, this plant is really dry. So we're definitely going to have to rehydrate it a lot. Jesus. So what I'm doing is I'm knocking off all the fertilizers. Essentially I'm cleaning the roots. So then this actually broke up into two pieces. You can see one's right here, one's right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some new soil. Maybe if we put it down here and just throw it in by hand. You're like, are you really gonna leave that draping like that? No, we're not. I'm gonna move it. But, and then I'm gonna take some moss and plant it around the roots. Keep these nice and hydrated. So, sorry, I keep bumping the plant there, or So we're going to tuck that way. I'm actually going to redirectionalize this one. What's going on, bud?
Along nicely.
Oh yeah.
Can I get some more over, please?
There we go. So I have this star polyp moss that I ordered in. Pull it out of the bag. It's a big old bundle. So we're gonna have to uncluster it. So I'm gonna take a section of this and I am going to pack it in there. I want those roots to stay nice and hydrated. And then what I'm also gonna do is gonna lift that up. And you may say, well, you can't see any of the work that you just did. You can't see the cork that you put in. You can't see the background that you put in. Yes, that is true. You can't. But what I can see is I can see a live plant. You know what? I actually think I might cut. I'm gonna cut this back. I don't like how that's looking. So we're going to set that in there. And then what I'm doing right here is I'm just filling in, because this is, after all, a moss wall. Now I don't like the flow. Sorry, I gotta slide some plants out of the way. So you ever have one of those days where your phone won't shut up? Okay. I was a little strong. So then we're going to take this.
Oh yeah. You too.
There we go. I'll show you what I just did there. Kind of ran with it. Covered up the moss, sped up the drip wall a little bit. I still might slow that down a little bit.